Hi everybody, this is Oksana. Today we're going to be making this fun pendant here with these swirls and even a little flower charm I added there in the bottom. This was inspired, I'll put up a picture here in the top right. It was inspired by this really old pendant that I made many years ago, and that one is an oval stone, so you can kind of see how it looks with an oval versus a teardrop, which is what I'll be using in this video. So if you want to see how I made this pendant, let's go ahead and get started. For our tools, we're going to need some wire cutters to cut the wire. These are the Swirl brand wire cutters, and then you're going to need round nose pliers and regular pliers. Mine are the Lindstrom brand. The regular pliers are RX 7890, and then the round nose pliers are RX 7590. So for our wires, we're going to be using these dead soft copper wires. They're from riogrande.com. This is square 20 gauge for our base wires, and for our thin connecting wire, it's this 24 gauge half round wire. So for the base wires, we are going to need 4 of them, and you can cut one of them a little bit shorter if you want it to save wire, but it also, if you find it confusing, just cut them all the same length. So this one's going to be 7.5, and then the other 3 are 10.5 inches long. So then we're going to be grabbing our wires in the middle, and then if you did cut the one wire shorter, what you do is you also center it. So you kind of find the middle of that and you hold it like this. So you have a little bit of space on each side. So it can just make it a little bit more difficult to try and center everything. That's why I said if you'd rather just cut all 4 the same length, that's totally fine. So what we're going to do is take that half round wire and have it facing the flat side down and the rounded side up, and with the tail end of it, we're going to start attaching just like this. Get a few wraps done, and then once we start running out of it, just leave that little tail end. And then with the other side, when you want to coil it, you have to turn these wires and guide this wire. Since it's connected to the spool, we have to do it a little bit differently. So after a little bit, it's an adequate connection. All of the wires are going to stay put now. So here's another difference about having the one shorter wire. So the one shorter wire, we want it to be in the front. So here in the front facing me, I'll be putting my stone here. So I need the little ends, little wire ends, to be here on this side. And I'm just gonna press down. Oops, this wire end kind of went onto the other wire. So just pressing down on all of that. And my stone, I'll show you guys. It's a teardrop Hypersthene stone, so I'm gonna measure it. It is, it's almost, oh no, it's not. I thought it was an inch, but it's actually bigger. It's about 30 millimeters. So you do want a decent size for this just because of the swirls that we're going to be adding. If you have a tiny stone, there's not going to be enough space to put the swirls, but if you really want to use a smaller stone, you can just lessen the swirls and just do like one little swirl instead of, what I'm going to do. Just whatever you have to do to make it fit onto your stone if it's small. And it doesn't have to be a teardrop. If it is a teardrop, it has to be positioned point down like this, but it can also be an oval or a round stone as well. So back to our wires with the short wire facing you and the little wire ends on top here. This is where you want to bend it. So since mine is a teardrop position point down, it's going to have a point. If yours is an oval or round shape, you just want to bend a curve with your fingers. It's easier for me to hold this upside down, which is what I'm going to do here. as I bend my point, and then you can periodically grab your stone and just see if that point will fit the point of your stone or if it needs to be a little wider or a little bit more narrow. So here's my stone. The point fits into that, I think, fairly well. So I'm just holding it, put it down on a table or a flat surface and just bend your wires around the edges. And then what you want to do is those shorter frontmost wires, so or if you cut them the same length, then they wouldn't be shorter. You want to just kind of move them out of place like that, get them out of the way, and then we're gonna continue bending our frame around our stone here. And we want these wires, these frame wires, to come together here, kind of top center above the stone, and there's going to be a gap as well. It doesn't have to be a very big gap. You can make it smaller if you don't want it to be too big. And basically once you bring the wires together, you just want to move them side to side. I almost kind of push with my nail, and that puts a bend into the wire and it makes them come together like this so that you have your frame. So here on your frame, you just want these wires to come together nicely. So you have 3 on each side here, and they just kind of stack together. Make sure none of them are crisscrossing or, sticking out, that they're all lined up side by side like this. And now we're gonna do what we normally do here, which is just wrap around all 6 of these wires to make that connection. So after I've wrapped a few times, I'm just gonna press down on that. Make sure that they're still all lined up nicely. I'm gonna move this little wrap further down, like so. I'm gonna take this little wire end, I'm gonna push it from back to front and just kind of pull on it like this. And now I can just cut that little end off as short as you can. Just get in there as much as you can to get rid of that wire end. All right, so now we are going to take the 2 frontmost wires here out of this bunch. Of course, the most frontmost wires here are these ones that we bent out of the way. So with the other wires, there's 2 on each side. So if you want, you can kind of bend them onto their respective sides. Sometimes that makes it easier because they're out of the way as well. So we're just going to continue with this little wire here, and we're going to wrap it around just these 2 wires for our bail. So I am just turning the piece and guiding the wire with my hand, and I like about 3/4 of an inch for size wise. I think that makes a good size bail. Feel free to do longer or shorter if you want a smaller or larger bail, totally up to you. But I'm just gonna do this off camera for a little bit until it gets to 3/4 of an inch roughly. All right, so then we just wanna trim the wire so that it's on the back here. The wire end is on the back, so this is the front. This is the back with the wire end, and then you just use your pliers to push down on that wire end and just press across this whole thing. Now we can lock our stone in. So I'm gonna grab my stone, pop it in here. And we're going to lock it in from the back by just bending the backmost wires onto the stone like this. And then in the front, it's going to get locked in by these wires and us doing the swirls. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually twist one of these wires, totally optional, just be careful the stone is still not locked in place. So when you're turning your piece to twist the wire, just do it over like carpet or something, so if your stone falls out, it doesn't break. You don't have to twist the wire, but if you like the twisted look, feel free to twist any of them that you want. You can do both of them. I'm just gonna do this one on the left. And I think this is good. I'm happy with this level of twist. All right, so now we are gonna work on these. So this first one on the right, what I'm gonna do is just kind of swirl it forward like this. Make a little loop here. And now I'm going to loop it in the other direction. You can actually use round nose pliers to help you here. Sometimes it's hard to make really small loops by hand, but with round nose pliers, it becomes a little bit easier, like that. And now I'm going to trim it. I'm going to make one final swirl, and it's going to be going in the opposite direction. So we swirl to the left, to the right, and now it's going to be going left again. So just leave yourself a little bit, depending on how much you leave, that's how big of a swirl you'll be able to make. So if you just want to make a small swirl, you'll need less wire. I want mine to be kind of on the larger side because we have this tiny one in the middle. So I'm just squishing tip of my wire with my round nose pliers, and now I am just swirling and making that. Just like this. You can adjust it with your pliers. I'm gonna just press down on it this way as well. I'm gonna line it up since we want to attach it, and just kind of mess around with this just a little bit. There we go, until I'm happy with how it looks. So there we go. Those are the right side swirls. Now we're going to do the others. All right, so now we're going to do the other side. So feel free to do something similar here. What I'm going to do though is I'm going to show you how to add a bead if you wanted to do that. So first I'm going to just make a little tiny swirl to get myself started here. And then I'm gonna go ahead and add a little bead. This is probably a little bit more than 5 millimeters, but it's a just a little flower charm bead. It can be a round bead though. You can even add like little copper beads. It doesn't have to be, you know, any specific type of bead, but if you wanted to for decoration, you could do this. And now we're just going to bend in this direction. And I'm just going to see how that's looking. So the bead's going to sit like this. So I want to make kind of a largish swirl here, since I'm going to have to attach that swirl to this edge. I don't want to make it too small because that's going to make the flower like stick out the edge, you know. So again, I just trimmed, and now I'm squishing tip of that wire, and now I am starting on my swirl here, and I can just get in there and adjust it with my pliers as well afterwards. So let's see how that's looking. So if we are gonna attach it to this edge. It's gonna have to be a little bit flatter up against the edge, like that. All right, so the flower does end up sticking out just a little bit out the side here since it is rather large, but that's okay. I think that looks cool. All right, so I'm satisfied with my swirls. And they are keeping my stone in, although they're not attached yet, so it's not 100%. We are gonna have to attach them with some thin wire. For attaching the swirls, you wanna cut yourself a little bit of that half round wire, just a few inches long, maybe like 3-4 inches long, and you want to separate the two wires here, because we're gonna be attaching to this wire only. So I'm gonna work my half round wire underneath, just like this. The flat side is facing me right now, so when I wrap it, it's gonna be the side touching the wire. So what I'm gonna do is get in here with my pliers and I'm gonna wrap it in this direction just to get it attached to that wire there. So that's 2 little wraps. Probably need at least 3. Mine's gonna end up being 4, I think. Let me zoom in a tiny bit. All right, so then this is my little end here. You can trim your wire, just mine happened to be such that I naturally ran out of that little wire end and I don't need to trim it. Here's my little wraps, and I'm going to slide this down until we reach our swirl here, like this. And now I'm going to take the wire and put it through the swirl and also through the wire that we're attaching to make the connection, to connect the swirl to the wire. Just pull on that. You can see that connection there. And now I'm going to wrap around the single wire only 4 times. So that's 2, 3, and then this is going to be 4. So I'm going to grab my wire cutters here and trim. And now I'm going to grab that little wire end, curve it this way, and just press down, tuck that away. And there we go. This is attached, and you can kind of move it back. You know how we separated the 2 wires there, so you can kind of put them closer together now. So the stone is getting trapped from the front because these swirls are holding it. Now we just have to do it on this side as well. So grabbing a little piece of that half round wire, a few inches long. Let's get it through here. And let's attach just to the single wire first. So I'll just do a few little wraps here. There we go. So this time I am going to trim because it's a little bit long. So with my pliers, just grabbing that wire and curving it inwards, pressing it down on it. And now with this wire, we want to attach the swirl. So we're going to slide it down here and then kind of put it through this swirl here, like that. And now we are going to wrap around the single wire. So I've put it through the swirl. The swirl is now getting attached. Let me just move this down a little bit, like that. Now we're just going to wrap around this single wire 4 times so it is equal to the other side. So that's 3, so 1 more. All right, now we can trim. And we'll be just tucking away that little wire end. Just gonna take it and kind of curve it down in there and press down on that, just like that. Try to put these wires a little closer together. And there we have it. Both of these are attached. The stone is quite secure now, so I'm gonna take my bail. I'm gonna grab where the wrap ends. I'm gonna put a bend into it like this. Then I'm gonna tuck the wires through and just kind of close that up by pressing on it like this. And squish the wires. So with this left wire, I'm going to wrap it around the edge here to attach my bail. I'm going to trim it here in the back and leave myself a little end. Then I'm just going to tuck away that wire end with my pliers, just kind of pushing it in there and pressing down on it. So now my bail is attached. This wire is just kind of extra. So you can trim it by just getting in here and cutting it as short as you can. So now if you want to twist any more wires, feel free to do that. I am going to twist the back wires. So we have 2 wires. There's the front and the back, and you have that on each side. So I'm going to twist the backmost wires, again just holding the wire with my pliers and turning the pendant. And this can only be done with square wires. You can't twist the round wires because the reason you get the twisted effect is the square wires have the flat edges and corners. They're literally like a square. If you cut it this way and look at the end of it, it's like a little square. And so you get the pattern of the edges twisting. All right, there we go. So first I'm gonna do this left side here. I'm gonna line up the wires together since they got kind of separated, and feel free to do your own thing here. There's lots of different things I've done in previous videos with these kind of last wires, and so if there's something you like better, feel free to do that. So I'm gonna curve it down. I'm trying to hide where I attached that little wire there from the bail. So I'm just kind of covering that up and doing a swirl and then another swirl and bringing it up this way. I think that the swirl is kind of more oval and I want it to be more round. Feel free to kind of adjust things as you see fit. You can do it with your pliers. And then the ends here, just to finish this off, I'm going to put them through the bail. If you're having a hard time, you can cut them shorter. Sometimes it's easier to put them through the bail if they're a little bit shorter. So just pulling them through, basically just attaching them to the bail to kind of finish them off and get rid of them. Like this. And now I can trim and leave a little wire end so you can push those into the bail, but you don't want it to be too long so that it sticks out the other side. If that happens, you can always just trim them shorter, it's fine. So the wire ends are tucked in there, but they're short, so they're not sticking out. Oops, I know you can't see, but there they are in there. They're not sticking out the other side, and you do want to just press down on those ends so they're nice and flat in there. All right, so that's our little swirl. And now with these wires, I'm just going to swoop them across and bend them to this side, just like that. I'm just going to fix this little wire because I don't know if you noticed, but from the front, you can kind of see it. There we go. It's much better. All right, so just gonna trim, and then we'll just be tucking away those wire ends as our last step here. So you do want it to be where the stone ends. You don't want it to be, when you're bending this wire, you don't want it to come onto the stone, because then here in the back you won't have any place to tuck it away. Now it is possible to still attach it if you really want this wire to go lower across the stone. You can bring it on the back here, do a swirl with it, and attach the swirl to like this wire or something with thin wire like we did here. So it is possible to do if you really want. Just a little extra work. And now I'm tucking away this other wire end. All right, let's see how that's looking from the front. I just want to make sure that my wire ends aren't visible from the front. So as the very last step, you just want to check that your stone is secure. Sometimes, because the swirls are here on the bottom, depending, on how wide and tall and all that stuff your teardrop is and how high up the swirls are, sometimes the very top of the stone can feel a little bit loose. So if that's the case, you just want the wires to go up onto the stone a little bit more to trap it here at the top, kind of the top corners of the teardrop. So you can manually push the wires onto it and then just check if it's feeling a little more secure that way. And then you can even get in here with your pliers and kind of bend the wire a little bit more onto your stone. That's going to be visible though if you do that. It's going to look like this. You can kind of see that little bend. And then if you wanted to do that on the other side, just so it looks a little bit more symmetrical, you can do that too. But that will solve any issues of the stone being loose or wobbly. And that's it. That is the finished piece. I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you did, leave me a like down below. And don't forget to subscribe. I post new videos every weekend. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.